Welcome to this EMS Web training session. During this training session, we're going to discuss filling out assigned checklists. An assigned checklist is created when the underlying audit or inspection is submitted. When it is submitted, the assigned checklists are created, the inspector is notified via email, and tasks are created for that inspector. The inspector then has multiple ways to get to the assigned checklists to fill out and complete. There are ways to get to it from My Dashboard, Tasks, Calendar, and the Assigned Checklists tab. There are additional checklists that can also be filled out if it has been allowed by the audit or inspection. There is another way of filling out assigned checklists by exporting the checklist to Excel and then filling it out and re-importing it. But that will be covered under the next training session. So during this training session, we will only be talking about filling out checklists online and through EMS Web. So we are looking here at an internal inspection, and this has been made to be a recurring internal inspection that covered one checklist template and 4 EMS items. It's weekly, so there are 52 checklist items. So one way of going to the assigned checklist is if the inspector knows that it is for a specific inspection, he can navigate to that inspection and then fill out the assigned checklists by going to this user's view and fill out 52 checklist items. Now, if the assigned checklist belongs to a non-recurring or a one-time audit or inspection, the view looks a little different. So in this example here, we're looking at an external audit. And here, the checklist template has been assigned to the user that's looking at this external audit. And then you'll see that there's a new area titled My Checklists. And then you see that the checklist is listed here. And then the user can just click on this link, and that will take them to the assigned checklist that he's supposed to fill out for this non-recurring external audit. For the recurring audits and inspections, we don't have this because there are so many assigned checklists that can occur for a single inspection that it's not practical to list them all out. The other ways that a person can get to the assigned inspections are through My Dashboard. And so I have it open up in this tab. And so My Dashboard contains tables for tasks and checklists. So a checklist task or an assigned checklist qualifies under both, so it's listed under both areas. The My Checklist is much more convenient for the user. So it lists out every individual checklist that is associated with the assigned checklist. So it is for a specific checklist template for a specific EMS item at a specific instance. The My Tasks will only show you the instance. So once the user checks into here, then they have to select the specific EMS item that they are interested in filling out the checklist for. The My Checklist table, they can find directly the EMS item and the due date that they are interested in for that specific checklist. Under Home and My Tasks, you have the same type of view for only that My Tasks table. There is also a calendar view for tasks. And if we navigate to that tab, oops, wrong one. Here's the calendar view. So all of the days in the past are in blue, the days in the future are in white, and then it lists any type of tasks that have been assigned to the user that are due in that calendar month. The tasks are color-coded to what kind of tasks they are. If they are assigned checklists, they are in green. You can see that these two tasks in red, that's a different type of task, and they've been marked as completed because they have a green check mark. So if I completed one of these tasks, one of these checklists, then it would also have a green check mark. And then the last way is through the Assign Checklist tab under Audit Inspections. And this is a little different than the checklist table under My Dashboard because it lists all of the assigned checklists for the whole installation. And so this allows inspectors to cover for each other in case one inspector is sick or on TDY or otherwise unavailable. And this allows any inspector to fill out checklists regardless of who it was assigned to. So let's go back to the specific audit inspection. And so if you go here and you start the view and fill out the checklist items, oops, it's asking me for my PIN because I have been away from the computer for a while without refreshing any pages. So I put in my PIN, it continues on with where I was going, and you can see all of the checklist items here that are for each instance. So then I'd have to select a date instance, like the one that's due on March 22. And then that would show all four of the items that were assigned to this instance. So you can see that two of them have been completed because it says review. And then two of them have not been completed, number 2 and number 4. So I can go in and on number 2, click on enter, and then I can fill out the information. So if I say I was building on building 135, no comments, or I could just leave it blank. And then under each one of these questions, I can say compliant, non-compliant, or NA. And so then, let's say I go through my list. There are 82 questions on this particular checklist template. And suppose I know that they are compliant to all of the questions except for one. So as a time saver, I can go ahead and click on compliant to all. Click on OK, and then this will set all of the questions to compliant. And then let's say I know I go down to the question that I know that they're not compliant, and then I can change it from compliant to not compliant, and I can enter in a comment. So I might say that a new drip pad was installed that did not meet the current design and operating requirements. Okay, and then I can save and finalize this checklist. Do note that once a checklist has been finalized and submitted, that it becomes historical information. The inspector cannot reopen or change any of the information here. The organization administrator for this organization does have the ability to go to a checklist and reopen it. And then that would allow the inspector or anyone else to make modifications and resave or resubmit and finalize the historical or the checklist. Do note that even after it's been finalized and submitted, you can add findings and observations from any of these particular questions. So if I wanted to, I could go back to this non-compliant question and add a finding for this item. When you add a finding from a checklist, it pulls in all of the relevant information, the citation code, the comment, the question, and pre-populates a lot of the fields on the finding form. So now let's go back to my dashboard. And do note, I just finished filling out the checklist for equipment number 2. I'm going to go back to my dashboard and look at, so here I am at my dashboard. And I'm going, and if you ever need to navigate to it, it's located under this quick link here on the right-hand side. And so now I'm going to go to the next week's checklist for that equipment number 2. So if I wanted to, I could create an export that shows all of the previous comments or all of the previous findings for that checklist. So that's handy if I know I'm going to go out into the field and I know if a particular piece of equipment has had problems and I want to see any of the previous comments that I've written in to any of the checklists prior to this time. So I can click on enter here and go directly to the checklist for anti-syncing device number 2. So you'll notice that going to it this way is a lot quicker than trying to go to the audit or inspection and going to users view fill out checklist, selecting the date, and then selecting the equipment that you want to fill out. So I think, from my experience, just going through my dashboard is the quickest way to get to the items that you want to do. Now, suppose you know from experience that you've gone to this piece of equipment, you've done your inspection, and you see that everything is the same as the last checklist. Then what you can do is you can just say copy from last checklist and use that button up here. And then it's going to pre-populate this checklist with the values from all of the previous checklists. And then the nice thing is that if you have comments from the previous checklist, then you can just add to those comments and note if anything has changed. So then on the last one, I said that the drip pan did not meet the design and operating requirements. Then I could come back and then note if it's been updated or not. So then I could say new drip pad was installed that did meet the design and operating requirements on 3/25/2019. So that's really handy if you want to keep a running commentary on any issues that you note from a previous checklist. So then you can go ahead and mark it compliant if applicable. And then, so this way, you can just go ahead and make relevant changes from the previous one and then mark it as finalized and submit. And you'll notice that there is a drop-down menu here for checklist, and this lists all of the other open checklists for that time period. So I still have number 1 and number 4 to fill out. So I can just click on equipment number 1 and click on the green arrow, and then it will take me to that one. So that way it's a very handy way of moving from one checklist to another when you have multiple pieces of equipment to fill out or multiple checklists to fill out, all due on the same time period for the same inspection. And then you can go ahead and fill it out here. So those are all of the ways that you can access your additional checklists. And then the last one I want to show you is, from assigned checklists. So this shows a lot of the same information that the My Dashboard checklist table displays. So it shows the audit inspection name, the template name, the specific piece of equipment that you're inspecting, and then some additional details like the location and the media, as well as the due date. Then also it has a column for any associated findings and observations. And if there are any, you can click into it and then you'll get a table that shows you those findings and observations. The ones in red are ones that are overdue. If I sort by the due date, then I can see the ones that are due in the future. But most of the time, because there are usually a huge number of checklists that are assigned in the future, like that weekly one that I showed displayed all of the ones going into the future for an entire year. So this assigned checklist table doesn't show all of the ones for the entire year. It only goes out for the next 30 days to keep this table more useful. So here, then you can see any of the ones that are coming up due. So those are all the ones that are in blue. So those are the ones that are open and have not completed and are not yet overdue. And so then, just like under My Dashboard, you can just go to Enter to fill it out. You can click on Print if you want to print out the checklist. And just like on My Dashboard, you can see the previous comments and the findings. Okay, so if I try and find the anti-syncing device number 2, and so then it's going to search through all of the previously filled out checklists and look for any comments that were created. So then if I open this up, then I have to wait for the PDF program to open up. So here we have now a list for this, the checklists that belong to this particular inspection. And it displays all of the additional comments that were located at the top. And then it shows you the questions, the citation code, and what the comment was for any of the ones that were filled out. So then you can see what the comments were for each checklist that was filled out over the entirety of that series of checklists for that individual inspection. Okay, so under the assigned checklists, you also have the ability to narrow down the checklists that are displayed to only the ones that belong to your account. So if you go to My Checklists, then it's pretty much the same as going to My Dashboard. So going to My Dashboard or Assigned Checklists is about the same level of time and effort to get to the checklists that you are interested in.